We last saw Asta and Yuno reunite inside a mysterious dungeon, after the latter saved both him and Noel from a man-eating plant. The two groups make their introductions and Klaus becomes annoyed at Asta's rudeness, while Noel is off-put by the unintended rudeness of her cousin Mimosa. Klaus then asks about the whereabouts of the Black Bull's third member, but neither Asta nor Noel can admit that Luck ditched them. Klaus then insults the Black Bulls, calling them incompetent, so Asta declares that they will be the first to conquer the dungeon. The two digress into a shouting match while Yuno and the others look on in amusement that Klaus was caught up in Asta's flow. As the Golden Dawn leaves to explore the dungeon, the Black Bulls chase after them. Both Asta and Yuno are thinking the same thing. Who can reach the treasure room of dungeon first? Meanwhile, King Julius is informed that the investigation of the dungeon is progressing smoothly, but is warned that the aggressive Diamond Kingdom has sent a battle mage, who goes by Lotus of the Abyss, to investigate the dungeon as well. However, his court is concerned. Julius is confident that he can be handled. Luck has defeated the entire Diamond Kingdom regiment, but now he eagerly faces Lotus. Lotus initially tries to escape, but Luck quickly catches up to him, realizing that he commands the power of smoke. Luck appears to be overwhelming Lotus, but his knees suddenly buckle. Lotus then explains that the entire time he was casting a weakening smoke on him, an attack that is invisible to the naked eye. Meanwhile, the Golden Dawn is the first to arrive at the treasure door, and Mimosa wonders where the Black Bulls are. She is suddenly struck by shards of crystals, gravely injuring her. Klaus and Yuno look at their attacker, a mysterious white-haired man from the Diamond Kingdom who demands that they move. Shaking off the effects of the magic, Luck begins feeling the thrill of battle even more. He begins fighting seriously, having electrified his arms. Lotus observes at his revitalized opponent and remarks that he'd rather not pluck a bud that is still young. In his youth as a commoner, Luck was scorned by his mother for his twisted personality. After he defeats a noble with his magic, his mother suddenly embraces him and convinces him he must keep on winning. Back in the present, Luck unleashes a vicious rush, but Lotus restrains him with solidified smoke at the cost of a significant bit of his magic. However, the payoff is well worth it as Luck's power continues to slip away from him. Meanwhile, Mimosa casts a cradle of healing on herself while Klaus and Yuno deal with their attacker. However, Klaus senses that their opponent has such immense magic even without a grimoire. Realizing that they are outmatched, he orders Yuno to head to the treasure room. Asta and Noel, led by Nero, stop when Noel senses denser mana in the air and identifies it as Luck's. Asta suggests that they help him out, but Noel reasons him to focus on the mission at hand, that the Diamond Kingdom may reach the treasure room first. Simultaneously, as Klaus is overwhelmed and as Lotus reaches out to Luck, Yuno and Asta arrive to the rescue of their respective teammates. Having remembered their conversation years ago, they both declare they have come to rescue their friends. Luck initially refuses to cooperate and goes after Lotus by himself, but Asta reminds him that he has come to have friends he can rely on. Lotus is forced to get serious and uses a deadly vortex of smoke, trapping the Black Bulls. Luck hypothesizes that Lotus can sense their magic through the fog, so he uses lightning bolts to herd him into an area where Asta is waiting. He slices him in the air, sending him crashing into a wall. Meanwhile, Yuno simultaneously summons wind blades and a wind eagle to fight their attacker, a feat which impresses Klaus. But to his horror, Yuno is easily beaten regardless, and the gap in their abilities is as clear as day. Lotus's injuries forces him to retreat in a smoke car. The Black Bulls give chase, but they end up losing him. Luck suggests they get a move onto the treasure room, irritating Noel as that was supposed to be their aim from the beginning. However, Luck's sensory magic acts up and informs them that someone far stronger is here. While Lotus regretfully retreats, he leaves the mission to Mars, the Diamond Kingdom's secret weapon. Klaus is horrified at the difference in levels between them and Mars and recognizes him as a specially designed battle mage. Yuno continues to fight on in vain as his wind-based attacks appear to have no effect on the mineralized Mars. Mars tells him to give up, but Yuno, knowing that Asta would never do such a thing, is galvanized and continues his assault. Mars drops a giant sword on him, but he is saved by Asta, who slices it clean in half. After Asta exchanges banter with Yuno, he turns his attention to Mars, who he quickly puts on the ropes. Klaus is astounded that a peasant with no magic could put up a fight when the Golden Dawn struggled so much. Soon, Luck and Noel arrive to support them against Mars' diamond clones. Asta relentlessly attacks Mars, smashing apart every attack that is thrown at him. Klaus is in disbelief, and Noel explains that Asta's power is magic negation. Klaus thinks that Asta was just lucky to be blessed with such a power, but Noel tells him to just sit back and watch. When Asta is crushed by Mars' diamond giant, Klaus is shocked to see Asta's muscular body, making him wonder just what kind of training he put himself through. Mars calls Asta an insignificant pebble, and Asta retorts that he is a pebble that shatters diamonds, leaping and destroying Mars' giant in the process. With this victory, Asta raises his sword in triumph. Klaus restrains the fainted Mars with his steel magic and confiscates his grimoire. Asta wonders if it is enough and he reassures him that it is. After a brief yelling argument between Asta and Klaus, Asta cuts through the door leading into the treasure room. They find themselves among massive piles of gold, treasures, and magical oddities. Yuno is drawn to a certain scroll, and after he opens it, a strange light engulfs him. The words on the scroll disappear soon after, and Klaus tells him to put it back. Asta is then led by Nero to a strange button, but just as he is about to press it, Luck's sensory magic activates and he warns the others to get down. The grimoire flies out of Klaus's hands as it returns to its rightful owner, Mars, who has returned with a vengeance. He summons a wave of diamonds restraining Klaus, Luck, and Yuno. Klaus is shocked at how easily Mars broke free from his anti-magic restraints. He is further shocked when he notices Mars using fire recovery magic, a trait he knows is impossible as mages can only use magic from under their main element, be it fire, water, wind, or earth. Mars begins his assault, mortally wounding Noel in the process, and Asta screams in horror. While Mimosa tends to Noel's wounds, Asta rushes to fight Mars. But now he is aware of Asta's powers. He instead overwhelms him with speed, sending him crashing through a wall. Mimosa then begins using the strongest magic she possibly can, acknowledging Noel's efforts and hard work all these years. When Asta comes to, Nero flies towards a smaller, more nimble sword which Asta picks up. He uses it to attack Mars, and to great effect as it also has anti-magic properties, but it is light enough that he can use successive strikes. Noel reawakens and gives Asta words of encouragement, saying, "You are the first peasant I have ever acknowledged." Asta's new sword glows blue, which allows him to unleash a water slash on Mars, negating his fire recovery and knocking him unconscious. However, Asta is gravely injured in the process and he collapses. Mimosa rushes to tend to Asta, but she is worried that her magic may not be enough. An unconscious Mars recalls his time in the Diamond Kingdom's experimental labs, where he was forced to kill his only friend called Fauna. As the sole survivor of their forced battle royale, the scientists decide to implant him with magic stones and Fauna's fire magic. Meanwhile, Mars regains consciousness, and in a fit of rage against Asta, he prepares to deliver a fatal blow. Yuno finally breaks free using his magic, but his four-leaf clover grimoire suddenly activates on its own, freezing time for this around him. However, a small fairy appears which unleashes magic that instantly defeats Mars, and time begins to flow normally. Unaware of what just happened, Yuno notices that the words from the scroll have appeared on his grimoire, and likewise the grimoire of Asta absorbs the sword he had picked up into its pages. Klaus is confident that Mars is defeated for good, but the dungeon begins to fall apart around them. Yuno uses his wind magic to carry them out, but Asta pleads to rescue Mars, reasoning they came to conquer the dungeon but not to kill. However, they are unable to do so as the destruction of the dungeon makes it far too dangerous. Using Luck's sensory powers, he safely guides them out of the dungeon, while the rest of the mages use their magic to defend themselves and Asta against falling debris. They make it out of the dungeon alive. Meanwhile, Lotus, who was trailing them the entire time, manages to save Mars alongside heaps of treasure. Finally, remembering that Fauna told him to go out and see the world, Mars shows gratitude to Lotus for saving his life. Asta finally awakens and Klaus embraces both him and Yuno, apologizing for his behavior towards them so far, acknowledging them as wonderful magic knights of the kingdom. Asta wakes up after sleeping for an entire week, and the other Black Bulls tease Noel for checking up on him so often. After eating his fill, Asta and Noel are instructed by Yami to visit the Magic Knight headquarters as they were requesting a report. Along the way, they bump into Yuno, Mimosa, and Klaus, who are also on their way to give a report. Klaus has become more friendly towards Asta, while Mimosa is visibly flustered at the sight of him, having developed a crush since their dungeon operation. When Noel sees her acting bashful, she wonders if she herself has feelings for him too, but quickly convinces herself that there's no way. They arrive at the headquarters where the Wizard King Julius has come out to greet them. This is Asta and Yuno's first personal encounter with the man they admire. He is intrigued by Yuno's newfound magic, which he identifies as Sylph, one of the four great spirits. He is equally fascinated by Asta's new anti-magic sword, internally remarking that absorbs a great deal of magic. Asta and Yuno ask him how to become the Wizard King, and he replies that it is through merit. Accumulate enough merit, and you will have the respect of the people. He then invites them to an awarding and promotion ceremony of Magic Knights for those who have accrued a significant amount of stars. In attendance are several notable mages, including the Silva siblings, Nozel, Solid, and Nebra. Also attending are the Magic Knights Leopold, Electora Sandler, as well as several captains. After the ceremony, Julian excuses himself but invites them to enjoy a simple reception, which Asta, Yuno, Noel, Klaus, and Mimosa also attend. However, once there, the nobles in attendance scorn their very presence, especially Asta's, due rough behavior. However, when the Silva siblings begin bullying Noel, calling her a failure, an angry Asta criticizes them, who once thought so highly of great magic knights, causing Electora to envelop him in his sand magic to silence him. Asta cuts out of the prison with ease, declaring that he will one day be Wizard King and silence all those who doubt him. The nobles are in shock at such an outrageous claim. The nobles are shocked at his insolence and the Silvas unleash a barrage of magic against Asta, but he cuts them down one by one. Recognizing his sword can erase magic, Elector restrains him using a sand soldier. Solid fires off a water snake attack, but Asta summons his great sword, deflecting it back to him. Suddenly, Nozel releases an immense amount of magic pressure which sends a cold shiver down everyone's spines. He tells Solid to cease at once, lest he embarrass the Silva family name. Afterwards, Leopold, who is a cousin of Mimosa, happily greets Asta, who is impressed by his boldness. He declares him to be his rival and challenges him to an arm wrestling match. Nozel turns to Fugolian, who finds it absurd that a noble would declare a peasant to be a rival. They both unleash their magical pressure, but a guard bursts into the room, with news that the capital is under attack led by a crazed white-haired man. Swarms of undead attack the city, with the crazed man calling out the magic knights to come and stop him. Elector creates a stone model of the city, far more advanced than Mimosa's flower model creation. He identifies key areas, but before he can give them their orders, Oster runs out of the room, saying he'll go where it's the noisiest. Finding this interesting, Leopold follows him soon after. An exasperated Electora splits the group into several teams and assigns them an area to respond to, despite the reluctance of some nobles to take orders. They split up and Electora grabs Noel so they can catch up to Asta and Leopold. The Silva siblings respond to the Central District. Saul, the Blue Rose Captain, and Charlotte respond to the East District. Yuno, Electora, and Mimosa respond to the Northwest District. Hammond, Siren, and Klaus of the Golden Dawn respond to the West District, while Electora and Noel make it to the North District in search of Asta and Leopold. A girl is surrounded by the crazed man and hordes of undead. The man desires the complete destruction of the Clover Kingdom, and as he moves to kill the girl, Asta makes a hero's entrance. The crazed man summons a wave of zombies against Asta, who mows them down one by one. Meanwhile, the other magic knights that responded to the other areas realize that the zombies keep coming. All at once they simply decide to just crush them with all their might. In all districts, the responding magic knights unleash an overwhelming display of power against the mindless hordes, killing huge swaths of them and earning the knights the renewed admiration of the people. Meanwhile, the crazed man finds Asta's anti-magic abilities to be troublesome as his zombies are controlled by his magic. A simple slash undoes the entire spell. When Asta asks him why he is hurting innocent people, he merely laughs, calling everyone who doesn't understand his magic a sinner. He summons a giant zombie nicknamed Jimmy, which appears far more dangerous than the others. It fires off deadly bolts of curse magic, causing even the slight scratch to become a mortal wound. The crazed man begins targeting the little girl instead, and Asta desperately tries to defend her, but he is soon bogged down by an onslaught of magic bolts. Noel arrives, but her self-confidence is shattered when she remembers the harsh words of her siblings. Fugolian appears, smacks her on the head, and imparts on her wise words that being weak is nothing to be ashamed of, but staying weak is. With a newfound resolve, Noel defends the little girl with her magic just in time. Leopold appears too, burning a wave of zombies to a crisp. He tells Asta to go for it, and Asta begins spinning with his two blades, eviscerating Jimmy. Now driven to a corner, the crazed man summons another zombie called Alfred, which fires off a lightning bolt on Asta. The King of Clover, the self-centered Augustus Kira Clover 13, wonders why Julius is not here to defend him. Meanwhile, Charmy wanders into the castle kitchen and finds that a chef is preparing a magnificent dish. She asks if she could possibly taste his cooking, and after sensing she is no ordinary person, he agrees. Asta is unable to keep up with Alfred's speed, and the crazed man mocks him for it. Fugolian assists Asta by burning Alfred to a crisp and apologizes to Asta for interrupting his fight. He remarks to Asta that if he wishes to be the Wizard King, then that makes them rivals. Asta tries to fight again, and although Fugolian admires his spirit, he tells him to stand down. Fugolian asks the man for his name and motive, and he finally reveals to be Raids. He explains he was once a top pick during the Magic Knight exams, and after joining the Purple Orcas he was soon expelled due to the nature of his corpse magic. He wishes to take revenge on the Clover Kingdom using his magic, a motive that Fugolian calls petty and childish. An infuriated Raid summons his strongest zombie called Carl, a supreme defensive and offensive weapon. Although it looks like Fugolian is on the ropes, he calmly picks apart a weak point in Carl's defense, killing instantly with a concentrated burst of fire Sol Linea. He galvanizes Asta, Leopold, and Noel, lecturing them that every magic has a weak spot. With raids weakened, the various zombies and corpses around the city begin to fall one by one, as the Magic Knights wonder what the purpose of the attack was, while Yuno resolves to become stronger. A witch looks on at the recovering city, who remarks that it is too early for them to be celebrating. Raids is further driven into a corner after his last zombie is defeated by Noel and Leopold. Fugolian restrains raids with fire claws and confiscates his grimoire despite his protests. When he opens it, he is surprised to see that it only has one spell, raising a corpse. Asta admonishes Raids for going down this path even when his magic was so powerful he was able to become a high-ranking magic knight. A voice receiver in Raid's ear tells him that he was too weak to fight a captain, and tells him to follow the plan. Suddenly, across the city, the various captains fall into a black hole and are sent several kilometers away from the city. Catherine the Witch then begins sucking out the life force of the citizens to retain her youthful appearance. However, she is surprised to see Yuno, who managed to avoid being sucked into the black hole. Yuno engages her in battle and asks what their goal is. She obliges and says that they are after a certain someone. Likewise, Fugolian interrogates Raids for the target of their attack, and he reveals that their target is none other than the captain of the Crimson Lions, him. Fugolian is surrounded by spatial magic transporting him to a strange place. Meanwhile, Yuno gradually succumbs to Catherine's curse bolts and he gradually loses his 5 senses. He laments that his power is not enough and that even Sylph's magic does not come out willingly. However, he suddenly gains a sharp mana-sensory ability, and remembering that Asta never gives up, neither does he. He is finally able to summon Sylph willingly and blows away Catherine with a mighty hurricane. A bewildered Fugolian explores the strange, white room he has been teleported into, where he is surprised to see a familiar face. Catherine is sent blasting into the castle, where she ends up in the same kitchen as Charmy. Now old and withered, she attempts to absorb Charmy's magic, but the latter thinks that she is after her food. She angrily summons a giant sheep which sucks up Catherine's magic and beats the daylights out of her. Now defeated, the aged citizens turn back to normal. Charmy scrambles to catch her plate of food, but it is saved by Yuno, whom Charmy is infatuated with, naming him as her food prince. As they interrogate Raids where Fugolian has been taken, Noel infers that the spatial magic caster must be nearby. Asta instinctively attacks a pile of corpses, where a magician named Vados is hiding, who commends him for finding him. Regardless, their mission is complete as he summons a portal where the body of Fugolian falls through, bleeding profusely and missing an arm. This brings shocks Noel and Asta while Leopold is frozen in grief, unable to act. Noel rushes to stop Fugolian's bleeding. His grimoire is still intact, which means that he is still alive. She screams at Leopold to help her, but he remains catatonic. With their mission complete, Raids begins to escape through Vat's portal, but Asta throws his sword, cancelling it. He proceeds to lay a beatdown on Raids, returning to him tenfold the pain he inflicted on the city. Vats finds Asta's anti-magic blades troublesome and admits that they might be in trouble. Vat's attack on Asta is cancelled by a now revitalized Leopold, who has snapped out of his state of grief. The cornered Vats and Raids are saved by the arrival of their 5 allies, who surround the exhausted and injured Asta, Noel, and Leopold. Asta grits his teeth and slices his own wounds to cancel out the effects of the curses, allowing him to recover somewhat. This astonishes Raids, who cannot believe someone can be so reckless. Asta stares down his adversaries and readies his blades, declaring that his whole life he has known nothing but adversity and difficulty, and no matter what comes his way he will overcome it. He howls at his enemies, and in a badass manner tells them to come and get some. And this brings the anime to an end. Comment for part 3. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on another video. Until next time, take care.